Hello everybody, hello, and welcome to another episode of the AIE with livestream series. My name is Matt, I'm going to be running the back end for tonight's livestream, and I am joined by two fabulous people with me tonight. Our very special guest, Rebekah Little. Thank you so much for being with us, Rebekah.
Hey, no, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Matt.
And we are joined also by Adelaide Event Officer Alyssa Taylor. Hi, Alyssa.
Hello.
Awesome. So as we go through tonight's live stream, if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop them in our Facebook or our YouTube or our website chat, and we'll do our best to get them answered by Rebekah or one of us. So feel free to comment as much as you like as well. But with that said, I'll hand over to Alyssa to run the live stream, and let's jump straight into it.
Alrighty. Well, first of all, thanks so much, Rebekah, for being with us tonight. Much appreciated. Could you start off by telling us a bit about yourself?
Oh, yeah, starting with the hardest question first.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just go through sort of how I got into games, and my journey into games was a little bit strange. I was doing my teaching and I heard about the serious applications of games in education, and I decided that I could do a lot of good using my technical expertise to make games. So I signed myself up for a design course at AIE, finally got through, finished my advanced diploma, and I was very, very lucky to get a spot as a graduate in United Kingdom. So just a little bit about my background.
Yeah, awesome. What kind of, I guess, made you look into doing game design originally? Was it just that you were a fan of games, or?
I actually wasn't a huge gamer, which is probably sounds a little bit strange, but I wanted to do something. I originally did a physics degree, and that was very technical, mathematical, obviously, and things like that. And I swapped into teaching because I wanted to help people. While I was teaching, I was reading about game-based learning. I was reading about how much technology can help people, especially through the medium of games. It's it's getting more tapped, and the potential is there, but there's a lot that we can do with games that I don't think we've done yet, and it's an incredibly powerful medium. And I wanted to be involved in that. I wanted to be involved in something that I saw a massive amount of potential for in order to be able to help people. And I looked through a lot of different online, what roles in game development suit you sort of questionnaires. And I finally settled on game design as being the sort of thing that I wanted to have an idea of the overview of the game and how it runs and how it relates back to those serious messages of that real world learning or things like that. It sort of really, when I started looking at it, had a lot of similarities to what I was doing in teaching. So it felt like a very natural progression at the time.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, there's a lot of degrees there, I guess, to eventually going into game design, so it must be something that you really enjoy. Was it just through the searching and whatnot online and working out what kind of area you wanted to go in that you actually stumbled across AIE, or how did you actually find out about us, I guess?
I did actually kind of do that. I found out about AIE just through searching a lot and trying to work out what sort of courses were accredited and what wasn't, and what was a bit dodgy and what wasn't. And AIE kept coming out on top as being the best place to learn game design. I didn't really want to go back to uni, I'd already done that a lot, and quite frankly, university degrees, they're great if you have a broad direction that you want to go to, but you don't want to specialise yet. But if you're specialising, you're much better doing a certificate, I think, because they're a lot more focused on that very specific area, and that's what I got out of AIE, was being able to do that certificate, do the advanced diploma, and like focus, like really focus on my interests, rather than feeling spread out over everything.
Yeah, a lot less essays and whatnot, I assume, as well than university. Oh yeah.
A lot
So did
more
you have any?
practical.
Yeah, which is awesome, which is what we go off really. And did you have any experience doing any 3D anything before, or was
Yeah,
it just your uni degrees?
it was my uni degrees. I remembered once I'd started that when I was a kid, I used to really like playing in map editors, like in Age of Empires and things like that. Um, and I slowly started working out that all of the parts of the games that I liked
Yep.
was like customization, making maps, making characters, all of those sort of things. And I was like, oh wow, I was really meant to be doing this.
Yeah.
And I had no idea the whole time.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I didn't have any like I didn't know any Maya, I didn't know anything. I certainly
Yeah.
didn't know Unity.
So your portfolio must have been interesting then to apply.
It was a little bit interesting. Like I included my previous studies,
Yep.
which I think helped, but I don't think that's the be all and end all. I had previously played around with making crosswords, so I included some of them in my portfolio. Um, I had started making a setting for a tabletop RPG because I'm quite into Dungeons and Dragons and all of that sort of thing. So I created my own setting and I included that setting in my portfolio. It was a lot of pen and paper stuff. It was
Yep.
a lot of what would be considered very early prototypes or very early narrative work. Um, and I think that's what really showed that I had the potential to do something good
Yeah.
at AIE.
And you definitely obviously thought about it as well because you've got all of that. So yeah. Um,
Hello, I just quickly pop in again. This is a super nerd question for me. You said that you love, and I actually do remember talking to you previously about you play D&D. So my question to you, and this is so relevant to the live stream, is I've been playing D&D for about a year now, and I just need to create a new character because mine got arrested and exiled. What would you recommend as a new character?
I once saw if you can make, I think it's a tabaxi, the flying race. If you can get one of them and make it into a bard, you become so overpowered so quickly, it's ridiculous.
Okay.
I once saw one of them, when built correctly, take out a party of the same level completely. Like it was like 1v6 and they're all the same level and they won.
A flying bard.
Was it
I like it.
Aarakocra, I think? It may have been like an Aarakocra bard. So they were shooting people with their feet and just buffing themselves massively. No one could reach them. It was great.
All right, perfect. Because I know very little about D&D, so I was like, "Oh, I'm going to pick your brains here." So apologize for hijacking and talking about D&D.
that is fun.
I will pass it back to
Got
you.
that, Matt? Lock it in.
I've written it down. I've got it written down. Perfect. Thanks.
Alrighty. Well, would you mind talking about your major project, I guess, at AIE?
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's been a little while. We did it at the end of 2020. It was me and another designer, Drennan, we got together and we decided that we really wanted to make a game together and we really wanted to come up with sort of unique pitch. And we were quite lucky in that we got along together really, really well, and we did work together quite well as well. And when we pitched it, it turned out that we ended up with a team of 9 people. I wouldn't recommend that if you can avoid it. They were all lovely people. They were so good, but it is so much to manage in a major project. I would highly recommend like limiting the number of people in your major project, like maybe 6, because at least we found it was quite difficult to, I guess, with our limited experience, scope something for 9 people. But no, we made a little game called NPC. It was basically based on the idea of what if you were the non-player character in a video game and you're just following around the heroes and seeing what they've done quite objectively, and like sort of seeing how, yeah, okay, they saved the town, but they also burnt it to the ground in the process. Yes, okay, they stopped the cultists from summoning the demon, which you just saw, but they didn't actually get rid of anything. So when you stumble across the demon, it spawns anyway. Sort of playing with that idea that of the hero mentality, and maybe that it wasn't as good as it could be. I think there's a lot of things that we could have done better. I think we tried quite a, I guess, ambitious narrative scope. And there are things that I would do now that would probably better indicate what was happening. Like I'd probably focus on creating some models of the players who have gone before you, or like the players who have gone before you, and I would place them like as ghost figures in the world so that you can see that you're actually following what has happened. But no, I'm pretty proud with what we got done, considering the amount of time we have had. It turned out all right.
Yeah, no, certainly. And to be honest, I've heard that quite a bit from people, that they almost try and go a little bit too far with their major project, and then the simpler ones often, I guess, turn out the really good ones. But yeah, what you produce is amazing anyway. So you obviously, as you said before, you work at Mighty Kingdom now, I guess. Can you explain a little bit about them and what they do?
So Mighty Kingdom is one of Australia's largest game studios. Until recently, they're focused primarily on mobile game markets, basically creating games for mothers and their teenage daughters is sort of like the demographic that we like to think about it as, which is, I will say, one of the largest markets that you can aim for. So it's quite a smart business decision. Recently, we sort of started looking at ways that we can branch out from that. Conan Shop Shop was recently released, and that was our first dive into a platform game, like on the PlayStation, Xbox, that kind of thing, rather than just on mobile, which was quite an adventure from what I hear. I wasn't on that team, but it sounded like an adventure. And I'm quite excited to say that what we're looking at is expanding quite rapidly, from what Mighty Kingdom was, and I think where you'll see Mighty Kingdom being in a couple of years will be quite different. So it's an interesting phase of growth at the moment. That's what I would diplomatically say.
Yeah. All right, great. So I guess you're happy with your final decision, all these degrees that you made and stuff. Obviously, it's led you to Mighty Kingdom. You're happy with your decision of being a game designer?
Yeah, no, I love my job as a game designer. I find doing little puzzles and all of that, I actually branched out into narrative. I was very lucky to work on Star Trek Lower Decks, which is a mobile game, where we collaborated with Eastside Games and their patented technology to create this, idle game based in the Star Trek world, which was like, I can't stress how much like the little nerd in me, like the Star Trek nerd in me, just freaked out when I found out that that was one of the first projects I was going to be working on. Actually, Matt, can you bring out one of the Star Trek clips? Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is actually stuff that I ended up writing, and scenes that I ended up like grey boxing and polishing myself. Obviously, there's a narrative team, so everything goes through reviews, and there's a bunch of people writing all sorts of different content for this, and they're all incredible. I cannot like push up how amazing that team is enough.
Yep.
But just the fact that I got to write the line "blasted parlous holograms" and have that in a game is incredibly satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, the job that you're going for, so many designers, students at AIE would absolutely love that position. I guess, could you tell us a bit more about how you found out about the job, and what the interview process was like and whatnot?
I think I found out about the graduate positions at Mighty Kingdom through word of mouth, and quite substantially through word of mouth. I had so many people tell me about it that by the end I was all like, no, I know about this one. Thanks, guys. But the process is quite rigorous. I will say that. You've got to really focus on putting your best foot forward. And that means making sure that you're on LinkedIn, making sure that you might even have a Twitter presence. It's probably not talked about enough, I find, but the game dev industry in Australia is massively reliant on Twitter. So get on that if you don't have a Twitter, and start posting some things. And you just, a little bit of it is about luck. It's about what Mighty Kingdom wants that year. They might just not need someone with your particular series of expertise, but more often than not, there are generalized positions, and I'd highly recommend that you go for them. Even if your end game, your end goal is not to work on the sort of projects that Mighty Kingdom works on, the experience and the learning experience and the expertise that you get from having that graduate year is very valuable. And specifically, as it's very hard to get a position in the industry without prior experience, and that's what Mighty Kingdom will give you. It will give you prior experience. It will give you connections. It will give you an opportunity to explore a little bit and maybe hone your skills in a particular area. The process itself was, I had to apply in late December. I'm so sorry, Liz, I got so sidetracked.
No, you're all right.
I had to apply in late December. It took several weeks to hear back. So I stress, do not panic if it takes a while to hear something. Because I certainly was. At every step of the process, I was panicking the whole time. But it is just because they get a lot of applicants. In that application process, they ask you a couple of questions about, like, that basically cultural fit questions. They're there to see whether or not you're the sort of person that people at MK want to work with. So I highly stress, like, yes, you want to put like that you have the expertise in there, but stress your soft skills. Like, really stress your soft skills. Stress what you do outside of game development. Stress all of those life experiences that make you a well-rounded human being. Because that's what they want to see, is, quite frankly, is well-rounded human beings. Yes, we want to know that you can actually do the job too, but we want to know that you're a good person to work with, that you're agreeable, that you know how to deal with conflict, that you're going to be able to take feedback well, and proactively work on yourself to prevent problems in the future. So I would stress those things above necessarily your technical skills. if you have to choose.
Yeah. I'm just imagining, those, have you ever gone for a job interview and they have those word charts and they
Yes,
click
okay,
which one would suit you? So when you were talking about that, that was just like, oh yeah, great tips for that, I guess.
The way it actually works is I think last year I got to see the questions and I got to see some of the responses. But I think there were 6 questions, and then everyone at the company is given opportunity to review those questions. I don't think I'm allowed to go into how they review them, but basically everyone's involved in that review process and screening whether or not someone might be suitable to work with.
Yeah.
And they're all anonymized. We can't see who wrote anything. We can't see what you wrote for other questions. We can't see anything about you other than what you put in the answers. So you've really got to answer well.
Yeah, so a blank page pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't rely on people being able to see your LinkedIn or your portfolio or anything like that at that stage.
Right.
They're good to include for later steps,
Yep.
but when you're answering those questions, just answer the best you can.
Yeah, perfect. All right, really good advice. I guess, can you tell us anything about your, day-to-day kind of schedule, what your calendar would look like in a day, if you can, of course?
That's really tricky, and it's something that I continuously asked every time I went into an interview for this position.
Yeah.
It varies so much from project to project, but often you start off in the morning, and the exact time changes depending on what project you're on, but it's usually anywhere between 9:30 or 10-ish. You do your stand-up, which works very similarly to how you'll be shown how to do it in AIE. The producers run you through that and you give everyone an update on what you're doing and where you're up to, and you've got blockers. And then usually I get a little bit of time in the morning to do a little bit of work, and then in the afternoons I'll either have a completely free afternoon or it will be meetings. Meetings, I think, is something that, there are a lot of meetings that can be avoided, and I think my team does a good job of avoiding those. But there are a lot of meetings that can't be avoided.
Yeah, the meetings about the meetings.
As a graduate, what you would expect going in is you would expect to be paired up with a mentor. You would expect to have at least at first weekly meetings with that mentor, and then fortnightly, and then monthly, depending on how you're progressing. And for that mentor to sort of help maneuver you into positions that will suit you and suit how you're developing your skills.
Yeah.
So that also depends a little bit depending on what sort of role you're going for. In design, it's very much you get in there, you start working almost immediately. I know for some of the more technical roles, I think in 3D art, in tech art, they have a more formalized instructional period because the processes there have to be quite specific and quite accurate. Us designers can kind of get thrown in and on less important tasks and won't break anything if we do something wrong. And then after about 3 months, you're on project work, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, amazing. I guess changing topics slightly, you're a big advocate for women in games. I guess could you tell us about your little shortlisted awards and whatnot? First of all, I guess congratulations on them. But yeah, I guess could you tell everyone about them, and I guess why it's so important to you as well?
I was actually this is part of the reason why I'd highly recommend having a mentor, even if you're not in a specific company. Get yourself a mentor, get someone who ideally looks like you as well. So if you're part of a minority, try to find someone who's working in games that's part of that minority, because the challenges you face will be very similar. I think that's part of why I'm so passionate about women in games, because In general, I've always been quite an activist. I've been quite like, I've been involved in so many volunteering projects and programs and trying to just make the world a little bit of a better place. But the industry, I don't think that this shouldn't be a fact that surprises anyone. We're playing catch up a little bit in terms of equality. We're getting better, but we could be a lot better still. And it's not just in terms of the demographics of people who work on video games, it's also about the characters we see. And they're improving. Like I recently had the amazing pleasure of playing Horizon Forbidden West, and there are a couple of characters in there that and their characterizations felt really true and great. There is a representation of disability in that game that really focused on the strength of the character and didn't treat disability as something that needed to be fixed, but rather something that happened to the person and part of who they are now, which is something a few years ago even would have been so controversial and just not seen at all. But we don't get those experiences, we don't get those stories, and we don't get to create that sense of community with players if we don't have the people working in games who can share those stories, who can consult, who can provide information about their experiences. So I think it's really important to encourage women to get in games. Women Games does that greatly. They hold various conferences, they have a Discord, they had a game jam that I was very lucky to mentor as part of. Not that I needed to do very much. The female-based teams that were part of that game jam were just incredible. And I guys ended up looking at their work at the end and I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm qualified to mentor these people. They are amazing. But I think it's about creating that community and sticking together. And like, I got myself a mentor. I was assigned her actually, but we're quite close now. Who is a woman in game dev. Who's a queer woman in game dev like me. And she encouraged me to look into women in games. She encouraged me to apply for the portfolio award because I wouldn't have done it on my own. She was like, you should do this. You did really well in your studies. You do so much out of your work. Go apply for this opportunity because you deserve it more than you think you do. And you need someone, especially, like everyone does, but especially as a minority in this industry, you need someone who can really talk you up because it's very hard to talk yourself up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's for anyone as well, not necessarily just females. Like bragging about yourself, it's not the easiest thing to do, is it? But no, it's I guess we are getting close to the end of time here, but will we see your name in any credits anytime soon?
Well, I think we do have a credit section in Lower Decks. It might not be released yet, but I'm pretty sure it's coming. There'll be credits there. Otherwise, the project I'm working on at the moment through Mighty Kingdom is it's early-ish stages. It's not going to be released too soon, but maybe in the next couple of years it might be. I might get some credits in there. And I've got a indie project that I'm working with a group of devs with, which I'm quite excited about doing. But hopefully in the next couple of years will be released as well. So not soon, but like in terms of my whole life and my career, like excitingly soon. Yes.
Just a couple of degrees, you know. I guess to finish up, is there any advice I guess you'd give yourself when you look back at your time studying that you think might be helpful for any students right now that are actually listening?
I would say don't be afraid to network. Most people out there are quite lovely. Don't push them either, but if there's a networking event, go to it. Enjoy yourself, have fun, get to know the people as people, because you'll be looked on a lot more favorably if you just treat people like human beings. And I would say also be ambitious. It's very probably counterintuitive and counter what you're told in general. I don't mean go out there and make an open world RPG. Don't do that. I never said that. Do not do that. But like, this is the time where you can do anything. You can do any project you want. You can be as ambitious and creative and weird as you want to be. And quite frankly, people want to see projects that are ambitious and weird, even if they're not 100% polished. Like, because that shows that you have the capacity and the ability to do something great. So don't focus on what you're not good at, focus on what you are good at, and do something with that that makes you incredibly happy. Because that will be your best chance at finding a job in an industry that reflects what you actually want to do, and will give you the best chance of someone seeing that and going, I never ever thought of making a game like that. That's really interesting, and it will make people remember you, which is what you want at this point.
Perfect. Be original, I guess.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Which is so much easier to say than it is to do, so good luck.
Well, that's pretty much all we've got time for, but a massive thank you to you. Thank you so much for joining us and I guess giving your advice. I'm sure there's so many students that would be so appreciative to hear this and have it available for them in the future as well. So a big thank you for you. I'm sure you've got a packed schedule, so making the time to fit us in, that is amazing. I'm going to throw back to Matt, and he is going to finish us off for the night.
Thanks, Alyssa, and yes, thank you so much, Rebekah. We really do appreciate it. We actually have a lot of high school students that we try to explain verbally what it is like working in games, but these live streams are always such a good tool for us to share with them because they can actually kind of hear it straight from the industry themselves. So we get a lot of replay or replayability from that. So yes, a big thank you. And yes, for anyone out there who is interested in potentially a career in games or even in film, we do have a lot of information and a lot of resources for you. So I'm just going to bring up our website very quickly. So if you head to aie.edu.au, there's a whole wide world of information available to you on here. First and foremost, we've got all of our courses here laid out under this tab. So feel free to have a bit of a gander and a bit of a read through these. We've got introductory courses for high school students or mature age students looking to, I guess, discover a pathway or a potential pathway. These can even be linked with your studies now, so through VET, so you can actually earn high school credits with these, which is fantastic. And then once you are ready for a career, we do have our diplomas and advanced diplomas as well, which is what Rebekah has completed and now working. And she's actually also completed a fair bit more than that, as we have discussed, in a fair few degrees under her belt. But yeah, there's all sorts of options here for you to have a bit of a read. If you want to go back and have a look at some previous live streams we've done, we've got our showcase tab here. If I can control the mouse well, there we go, under workshops. And we have also our upcoming events here. So these are a great opportunity to come along to AIE, your local campus. Check out the teachers, speak with the staff and find whether AIE is the right pathway for you. So we do have open day coming up this Saturday, so May the 14th. Definitely still time to register, so head to the website if you do feel like coming along, and then 2 weeks later we do have our online open day as well, but always coming to the physical campus if you can is the way to go, because as I said earlier, you kind of get to meet the teachers face to face, listen to presentations, find out more about each of our streams, and we'll also have a alumni speaker come and join as well. So If you need to ask us anything, there's of course the ask a question down here, or if you're super eager, you can just click the apply now button and fill in the details. Complete your degree, and 2 years later, be making games or film, either one. So that's all the information there for you. Thank you again so much for everyone that's joined us tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing from Rebekah, and thank you so much for running the live stream with us tonight, Alyssa. And we wish you all the best, and we'll see you next time for the next live stream. Have a good night, everybody.